Everybody, Jimmy Smith doing my post-fight breakdown for Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Kattar in Moscow. It's a couple days late because I wasn't here at home for the last couple days, so on my laptop it just looked terrible. So I waited a little bit until I got home and got an actual microphone. So, interesting card. I thought it was pretty boring, to be honest. No one fight was necessarily that bad. Main event delivered. I thought the Ed Herman fight was entertaining. But a lot of decisions on this one. It's just the way it is. And I didn't understand a lot of the decision-making on this card by a lot of the fighters. And I'll drive by and tell everybody what I mean by that. The first one is Shamil Gamzatov versus Klidson Abreu. I thought Abreu won the fight. I thought he won 2 of the rounds. But the frustrating thing about it to me when I was watching it was, and I tweeted about this, neither fighter seemed to really go into fifth gear. No fighter really claimed the center. No fighter really pushed it. It seemed they both kind of fought like they had it in the bag. Not a ton of aggression. And so I always hate seeing that as a fan, as a commentator, whatever, however I'm watching it. Somebody losing the fight and going, God, if I had done a little more. Now, I thought Abreu did win the fight, but not by a ton. Not by a lot. Probably a hometown decision. But Abreu can still go, God, if I had pushed it more in certain areas. I thought it seemed like almost a tennis match. Offense, defense, offense, defense. They kind of took turns doing offense. And whenever you see something like that, there's an idea that they've set a cadence, and the one who wins is the one who's going to break the cadence. And no one ever did. No one ever claimed it. No one ever attacked when they were supposed to be defending or anything like that. Nobody countered effectively. It was like, all right, you punch, then I'm going to punch. Whenever you get into that rhythm, it leads to a lot of kind of toss-up rounds. So Gamzatov got the decision. I think it was a little bit hometown, but Abreu can, unfortunately, I think if Abreu had done a bit more and been a bit more aggressive and really put a stamp on that fight, he could have won it. Anthony Rocco Martin, Ramzan Emeev, another fight that was kind of bizarre to me, and then Emeev was jabbing really, really well. He's rangy, he's awkward, his style is funky, and he was hitting him with the jab, popping him immediately. And didn't follow up with any power shots. The point of the jab, it's a great opening. It's what you do to get past your opponent's defense, to get them reacting, in some cases overreacting. Then you can hit him with power. You can hit him with kicks. It sets up your takedown. Emeev popped him with the jab, and that was it. It was like that was his only effective strike. Well, eventually, similar to Cowboy Gaethje, Cowboy did good work with the jab, but you have to use that to set up other stuff. They'll walk through it. Gaethje walked through Cowboy jab, landed the big shot. Well, that's the same thing Martin did. Oh, you're just going to jab? Okay, I can take that in order to get in and land combinations, and that's what he did. He was able to kind of walk through a lot of those jabs and mix it up. And Emeev, I thought, was being effective and yet never using that second and third offensive level. The jab is the first offensive level. Teep kick's the first offensive level. That sets up everything else. And Emeev wasn't doing that. It was like he hadn't trained anything but the jab leading into this fight. So I thought that was, once again, a strange tactical choice that, Anthony Rocco Martin, to his credit, took advantage of. And so that was the second fight that I thought was a little weird when I thought, man, you could have done more tactically in this fight. Ed Herman versus Ibragimov. Okay, so Ed Herman's been in the game forever. One thing you have to keep in mind is Ed Herman was not a particularly explosive, athletic, quick fighter in his prime 15 years ago. That just wasn't him. That isn't how he fights. Ibragimov is fighting a guy who's much older, but a battle-tested warrior who can brawl, who likes bloody fights. And how does he fight? He fights a slow-paced brawl, which is the exact kind of fight Ed Herman can fight. He can still do that at 39. He can wade in and throw big punches. So in the beginning of the fight, Ibragimov steps forward and starts putting it on Ed Herman. And I thought, okay, he's going to outpower and volume him. Hurt him. And then he takes a break. He stops and takes a breath. Like, he takes a rest. Well, Ed Herman went, okay, my turn. And went after him. And that was the pace of the fight. You can wear Ed Herman out. He's 39 years old, been through a lot of wars. If you keep the pressure up and make it about gas and athleticism, you can beat him. He was never that athletic in his prime. But if you're throwing big punches and then letting him throw big punches, then you throw big punches, Ed Herman can win that fight. Great, an old warhorse going to war. Great, I'll do that. I'll walk through hell to win fights. I've been doing that my whole career. So what's so weird to me is the younger, I'm presuming more athletic fighter who's closer to his physical prime fought a slow-paced, heavy-handed fight, which is what Ed Herman is great at. If he would have chose any other combination of fight, if he had made it about quickness and accuracy, Ed Herman's not particularly quick or accurate. If he had made it about volume and pacing, and okay, can beat Ed Herman at that. If he made it just about power shots, but consistent with the power. Ed Herman's not a power puncher necessarily, but he can brawl and go to war with the best of them. And that's exactly the kind of fight that Ibragimov put on him. And so I was watching, I loved watching Ed Herman win. This isn't bashing Ed Herman. I really like Ed Herman. But I was watching this going, you're choosing the only kind of fight that Ed Herman can win at this age and this level. Okay, go to war and make it bloody. I can win that. Craziness. So I was like, I couldn't believe, once again, for the third time in a row, I really couldn't believe what I was watching. I was sitting on my couch watching this fight. I was like, really? This is how you're fighting Ed Herman? That's crazy, you know? So, Danny Roberts, Amadaev was winning and then got clipped by a left hand, just absolutely floored him. It reminded me of some advice my first boxing coach gave me. He said, it doesn't matter where a punch comes from, it matters where it goes back to. So you can up jab, you do all kinds of stuff, especially with the lead hand. You got to bring it back or be aware of where it's coming back and where your head movement is. Because that's when you get hit. It's not when you're punching somebody, when that distance coming back. And Amadaev just lost that lesson. He was throwing punches, didn't bring his hands back where they needed to be, and boom, face down, that was it. So a lot of fighters make that mistake. It's very hard to throw a punch and be conscious of where it comes back to. Really high-level boxers do it well, but even then they get caught sometimes. So Amadaev just got caught up in a brawl in that moment against Danny Roberts in a fight he was winning. He was the superior tactical striker, got the takedowns when he needed them, and then left his chin hanging out for one shot, and Danny Roberts took advantage of it. So, entertaining fight. Amadaev was about to be up 2 rounds, and then let it go, but that happens when you get aggressive. So, good performance by Danny Roberts. Excellent power with that left hook, good accuracy, good timing on it, and hey, you have killer instincts and you hit hard, you can come back and win. Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy. I'm not going to lie, I fell asleep during this fight. Partly because I didn't get much sleep the night before, but so I watched the first round, and I started nodding off in the second round, and I woke up enough to go, okay, same thing, okay, and I would go back to sleep, and then I woke up for the third round. So like the second round I kind of missed. I want to talk more about the post-fight reactions to this fight. Not only people heaping praise on Greg Hardy looked like a middling contender at heavyweight. I think that's what he was going in. I think that's what he is going out. We didn't learn that much about Greg Hardy. Yeah, he had the guts to take a late notice fight. Good for him. But Alexander Volkov is one of those guys, if he gets a couple breaks, can fight for a heavyweight title. He can. Obviously beat Verdum, was beating Lewis until he got knocked out. He's shown he can be successful at a very high level, but Greg Hardy just didn't have the skills to compete against a guy who wasn't just a short, stocky, move forward kind of brawler. You know, Volkov is tall, rangy, he's accurate, good volume, works the lead leg well. So it's one of those things where I didn't see that X factor from Greg Hardy. I haven't seen it before the fight. I didn't see it during this fight. He's gotten better, and a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, he's only been in it so long. Look, here's the deal. Aside from the domestic violence, which is obviously a huge issue that I will not minimize in any way, I think it's terrible, he got fast-tracked. I think that's an issue that a lot of people aren't acknowledging enough of. His pro debut was on Dana White's Contender Series. Has he learned a lot in the amount of time he's been fighting? Yes, but he didn't have to go through the 5 to 10 local fights before you get to Contender Series, before you get to make money on the main card. He just skipped right to the front of the line. And I think that's what a lot of people are upset about, is not just the domestic violence thing. Okay, he admitted it, and he is apparently trying to move past it. Does someone have the right to rebuild their life? Yes, they do. But does someone have the right to skip the line in front of everybody else because you played in the NFL? That's a lot of the issue. So I think it might be a disservice to him that he didn't have to go through the fundamental steps to get to the UFC. He didn't. He started out in the Contender Series. His pro debut was in the Contender Series. So he kind of skipped the line. Well, he didn't learn everything everybody else learned because he didn't go through those road bumps. Same thing with Aaron Pico. I think Aaron Pico starting at Madison Square Garden, Bellator main event, was the worst thing that could happen to him. He didn't learn all those lessons, those 8 to 10 fights. Maybe you win all of them by knockout in the first round. Maybe you do. But you learn a lot anyway. You learn to go through the emotional and physical parts of fighting. Greg Hardy skipped that step completely. So I think what a lot of people are mad about is, A, he's making huge money right out of the gate, kind of started out in the UFC, making money that people don't earn for years in the UFC. So a lot of people are bitter about that. But also I think tactically and professionally, he missed out on a lot of formative fights. And so right now, I think he's a mid-level heavyweight. He's athletic, he's strong, he has a lot of physical talent, but he's not young. He's 31, 32. He doesn't have a lot of time to catch up to everybody else. And I think we saw against Volkov, which wasn't a huge surprise, that he doesn't have that X-factor talent or skill that's going to make him competitive against the Junior Dos Santoses of the world, Derek Lewis's, the guys that are good. And then you got the Stipes and DCs that are really elite level. And I didn't see what's going to get him there in the amount of time he has left. And people go, oh, he hasn't been fighting that long, he can catch up. He doesn't have a ton of time to catch up. He's in his early 30s. A lot of people, that's their athletic prime. He may have a couple of years left in that window. Now, heavyweights tend to perform better later than other weight classes, but still, you never know, when the floor is going to drop out from under you. So people that are heaping praise on Greg Hardy, I was like, well, I saw what I thought we were going to see. A guy who is athletic and talented, but comparatively limited, taking on a guy who's got real skills. And the deficit was there. He didn't win a single round. So aside from the moralizing about his domestic violence charge and all these things, just practically, if you put him against mid-level guys the rest of his career, he'll beat most of them. But I didn't see anything that makes me think he's going to get to the top. He could suddenly learn that thing and be amazing, or have those right performances at the right time to get a title shot when no one else is there, maybe. But I think in this fight, we saw basically what we thought we were going to see. Zabit, Magomedsharipov, Calvin Kattar. Look, I'm a big fan of Magomedsharipov. Since I called this the first fight I called of his, and I had to study him, I was like, man, this guy's amazing. I truly believe he's going to have trouble in long fights for the rest of his career unless he makes some serious tactical changes. You have to understand, as a coach and as a fan, and someone, if you're really studying the sport, the difference between gas and pacing. You can have a ton of gas, all the cardio in the world. If you spend it inefficiently, you're going to run out of energy. It's the way it goes, okay? Frankie Edgar, oh man, he's got the biggest gas tank in the world. He paces himself really, really well. He's very efficient with everything he does. So a lot of times what we see as great gas or great cardio is really just great pacing. They know how to fight in a way that they can sustain that pace for 25 minutes. Zabit, with his build, he's 6'1", 145 pounds. He's explosive, dynamic, powerful, has a good volume attack. He's rangy. You can't have it all. Point out any great fighter in all time, the greatest, the GOAT, whoever it is, there's something they're missing. Nobody has every single quality. And Zabit, with his style, he's not going to do well in long fights. Now, Jose Aldo, for example, the greatest featherweight of all time, in my opinion, had trouble pacing himself in long fights. His trajectory, generally speaking, even in his prime, was explode early, maybe knock you out, a lot of times he did, or he won the first 3 rounds and he had trouble in rounds 4 and 5. His whole career. Now, Zabit is having trouble in the 3rd round, which is a killer, because if that had been a 5-round fight, he's in trouble. Now, the caveat to that, which I said with the Jeremy Stevens, Yair Rodriguez fight, is maybe in a longer fight, he paces himself differently. That's possible. I think his build and his style just doesn't lend itself to long fights. He's explosive and big and powerful and likes to throw a lot of strikes. With that combination, you're going to run out of gas. Nobody can do that. John Jones, who's basically a light heavyweight Zabit, meaning tall, rangy, explosive for the weight class, what does he do? The big brother, right? He reaches out, keeps his opponents at bay, and takes a break. He's very good at pacing himself. On the ground, he tends to explode with the elbows and everything, then he takes a break, then he rests. He gets it back, then he explodes again. You'll notice John Jones, when he fights, taking breaks throughout a 25-minute fight. Zabit didn't do that at all. He was aggressive, and then around 3, he was like, when is this fight going to be over? He hasn't learned tactically to pace himself. If he doesn't master that, this is as high as he's going to get. Because the fighters just get more experienced and tougher, although Calvin Kattar, very, very tough. He's going to get in 5-rounders. You can't get much further without getting into some, at least UFC Fight Night main events, 5-rounders. He's going to face those 25-minute fights. I don't see a guy right now that's going to win a 25-minute fight. So he has to and it's not just about, boy, is he doing his laps and his road work, and almost every fighter does that. It's a matter of pacing yourself properly so you don't spend gas inefficiently. He's got it with his build. He's going to burn a lot of gas fighting the way he fights. And he has to change that around. I thought he looked great in the first 2 rounds and then right off a cliff. So I saw a great physical talent with a lot of skills. He has to change the way he fights if he's going to win 5-rounders. These veteran fighters he's going to face from here on out know how to ride out the first couple rounds and then blast you. They know how to pace themselves so that you run out of gas and they don't. Calvin Kattar's had good gas, and he really put it on him in round 3. That takedown he got off the flying knee, he was holding on to his hips and stalling. That's what he was doing. I mean, I've done it before in jiu-jitsu matches. 10 seconds left, I'm just going to lock my hands and stall here. Wrestling matches, you get a takedown and stall. That's what Zabit was doing, period. There's tactically setting footwork traps and retreating strategically so you can counterpunch. Zabit was running in that 3rd round. He just was looking at the clock going, when is this going to be over? And unless he solves that, he's going to have a lot of trouble moving forward. He can do it, but I think his size and his explosiveness and the way he fights is just going to make it difficult. It's going to be naturally a huge challenge for him to win 25-minute fights, and that's what's coming up next. So those are my thoughts on the main card. Let me know what you think. As always, and I'll see you when I'm done.